I was 30 years old the night my younger sister slapped me across the face in front of 200 people at her oceanfront wedding, and for a moment, I truly thought the world had stopped spinning. The ballroom lights glittered off crystal chandeliers, frozen mid-sparkle. The band choked to a halt on the last note of a love song. Guests clutched champagne flutes that trembled just enough to make the bubbles shiver. I swear I could hear the Atlantic outside the windows go silent, and somehow through all of it I tasted salt on my tongue, not from tears, but from the shock of knowing Lily had actually done it. My own sister, my baby sister, the one I used to braid hair for before school, the one I held when thunderstorms terrified her. Now she stood there in a wedding gown I helped pay for, her hand still hovering in the air like she wasn't sure whether to hit me again. That slap wasn't just anger. It was a message, a warning, a demand I refused to meet. And before I tell you how I ended up on that stage with 200 strangers staring at my humiliation like it was entertainment, I need to take you back to the weeks before the wedding, when everything still looked normal on the outside but was already rotting underneath. I should have noticed the cracks earlier, the small changes in Lily's voice. The way she said my name with sweetness stretched too thin, like cellophane about to tear. The way she circled around the topic of my penthouse as if she were testing the strength of invisible fences. But it truly began 2 months before the wedding, on a humid Charleston evening, when Lily asked me to meet her for drinks. I remember stepping into the rooftop bar, the sunset spilling peach and gold over the harbor. Lily waved from a corner table. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect smile. I thought maybe she had good news. A promotion, an engagement plan. Maybe she genuinely wanted to reconnect as sisters. But the first thing she said wasn't hello. "You look tired, Ava. Everything okay? You've been so distant." I blinked. "Distant? I've been working double shifts all week." She gave a soft, rehearsed laugh. "Right, work. You bury yourself in it so much you forget you have a family." There it was, that subtle jab she'd started using. I ignored it. "How's the wedding planning going?" I asked, trying to steer us into safer waters. But Lily leaned forward, fingers drumming on the table. "I've been thinking," she said, "about after the wedding, about where Brett and I are going to live." "Oh?" I took a sip of water, uneasy without knowing why. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We're struggling with the housing market. Everything's insanely expensive. But I realized something. You have a place with plenty of room." My chest tightened. "My place?" I asked carefully. Lily lit up, mistaking my caution for agreement. "Your penthouse is perfect for us. And it's not like you're using all that space. You're one person, Ava. It'll be better for everyone if we start our life together there." My pulse thudded in my ears. "Lily, that's my home." She waved a hand like it was a small detail. "You could move into something smaller, cozier. You always say you want a simpler life." I hadn't said anything remotely close to that, ever. "And besides," she added, voice softening into that guilt-laced sweetness she used when she wanted something, "it's what Mom and Dad would have wanted." That line hit me like a punch. She knew it would. "Lily," I tried again, "I bought that penthouse with my own money, my savings, my work. It's the one thing in my life I built entirely by myself." Something flickered in her expression. Irritation, quickly buried. "You don't have to decide now," she said lightly. "But it would make the wedding so special if you announced something meaningful during the toast." I froze. "Announced what?" I asked, dread rising. "Oh, I don't know," she shrugged too casually. "Something about giving us your penthouse." There it was, spoken clearly for the first time. "No," I said, calm and firm. Lily's smile snapped like a stretched rubber band. "No? No," I repeated. "Absolutely not." Her eyes iced over. "You're going to regret saying that." The evening ended awkwardly. She left in a storm of perfume and bitterness, and I walked home trying to shake the uncomfortable truth clinging to me like humidity. Lily didn't want help. She wanted ownership of my home, of my stability, of the one part of my life untouched by her expectations. Over the next few weeks, the tension tightened like a wire between us. She called less often but asked sharper questions. Brett showed sudden interest in property values. A bridesmaid hinted the wedding reception would have huge surprises. And Lily kept dropping pointed remarks. "You'll do the right thing during the toast. You want me to be happy, don't you? Ava, don't make things complicated." Complicated? That was her word for boundaries. I remember the morning I realized something bigger was coming. I was at the penthouse balcony watering my herbs when my building's security desk called. "Ms. Greenwood," the guard said cautiously, "your sister's here. She says she has permission to go up." My stomach twisted. "No," I said quickly. "She doesn't. Please don't let her into my unit without my approval." The guard hesitated. "She insisted she lives here part-time." "What?" I nearly dropped the watering can. "She said you've been preparing the place for her and her fiancé." My hands shook. "Do not let her in." That night, Lily texted me 3 paragraphs accusing me of turning my back on family, embarrassing her, and hoarding resources like a selfish stranger. I didn't reply. I should have realized silence was gasoline to her ego. By the time her wedding week arrived, I could feel the storm coming. She barely spoke to me except through others. Her bridesmaids acted strangely around me, stiff smiles, 2 polite greetings. Brett avoided eye contact. Aunt Sharon whispered every time I entered a room. Something was building, something ugly. But nothing prepared me for the moment her hand collided with my face under all those glittering lights. For the moment, my world broke in front of 200 witnesses. And for the moment, I realized the worst part wasn't the slap. It was that Lily had planned every second of it. I woke up the morning after that rooftop conversation with a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. Charleston sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor, warming the hardwood, but it didn't reach me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Lily's words over and over, like a bad song I couldn't turn off. "You'll regret saying that." I kept hearing it, sharp, cold, certain, like a promise, not a warning. I told myself she'd cool off, that she'd call with her usual chirpy voice, pretending nothing happened, that maybe she'd even apologize. But the silence stretched across that day like a rope tightening around my ribs. By noon, I tried distracting myself by cleaning the kitchen, wiping surfaces that didn't need wiping, organizing drawers already organized, polishing things that didn't shine anyway. My hands needed motion, because my mind wasn't settling. Everything looked normal in my penthouse. The soft gray walls I painted myself, the bookshelf I assembled after 3 YouTube tutorials, the couch I spent months saving for. It had always been my sanctuary. But that morning, even my home felt watched. As if Lily had left her voice inside the walls, whispering accusations. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. I tried texting her, delivered, not read. By mid-afternoon, she had posted 2 Instagram stories, one laughing with bridesmaids at a dress fitting, one hugging Brett. Not a single acknowledgement that we'd argued last night about something life-changing. It was like she'd pressed a mute button on me, and I didn't know it then, but that was the first sign of something she would weaponize again and again, silence as punishment. Around 5, my building's front desk called. "Ms. Greenwood, your sister is here again." My stomach dropped. "Again?" "This morning she came by, asked about guest access. She's back now, says she needs to speak with you urgently." Urgent. That word never meant good news with Lily. "Please tell her I'm not available," I said. The guard lowered his voice. "She insisted she has the right to come in." I closed my eyes. "She doesn't. Not without my permission." Understood. But when he hung up, I stood frozen in my kitchen, the hum of my refrigerator suddenly too loud. She had never tried to enter my home unannounced before, never acted like it belonged to her. It hit me then. Lily wasn't just angry, she was escalating. That night she finally texted me, A single line. "You hurt me today." That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd asked of me. Just a guilt-laced accusation meant to pull me back into orbit around her. I typed and erased responses. Everything sounded either too angry or too passive. In the end, I didn't answer at all, and that silence once again became gasoline. The next morning, Brett called me. His voice was calm, almost polite. "Ava, can we talk?" "No," I said immediately. He sighed. "Look, I know Lily can be intense, but you blindsided her. You've always been the stable one. She counted on you." "Counted on me to give her my home?" I snapped. There was a pause. Then he said softly, "It would really help us, you know. We're drowning here." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. "Your financial problems aren't my responsibility." Brett's tone hardened. "Your family. Family doesn't demand things like that." "Well," he said, the politeness scraped raw, "maybe you're not understanding the bigger picture." I hung up before he could explain what that bigger picture was. But I knew. Everyone in my life, Lily, Brett, Aunt Sharon, had always believed I'd be the responsible one, the fixer, the glue, the dependable older sister who never asked for anything and always came through. The idea that I might draw a line? To them, that was betrayal. For the next week, the air between us grew colder. Lily kept her distance, but not completely. She sent little jabs through text. "I don't know what Brett said, but you hurt his feelings. You're making the wedding harder than it needs to be. You know I've always supported you." Supported me. That word burned. Lily had never supported anything except her own priorities. I tried to focus on work, but even my coworker Jess noticed my distraction. "You look like you're about to cry or punch someone," she said gently. "My sister," I muttered, rubbing my forehead. "She's different lately." "Different how?" "Like she wants something from me, and she thinks she's entitled to it." Jess raised an eyebrow. "Is this about your place?" I froze. "How did you—" She posted something online about big gifts coming from family. I assumed she meant you. My breath stalled. Lily had already begun planting seeds, crafting a narrative where giving her the penthouse wasn't an absurd demand but an expected gesture. That night, I walked past the mirror in my hallway and caught my reflection. I didn't look like myself. My shoulders hunched, my eyes tired, my expression wary, as if I were waiting for something to strike. I held onto the railing of the balcony outside and watched the harbor lights flicker across the water. The city felt peaceful from above, boats cutting slow trails across the bay, the sky dimming into indigo. The world looked calm. But inside I felt like I was cracking. I didn't want to resent my own sister. I didn't want to think of her as someone dangerous. But every interaction, every message, every silence made me feel like I was slipping into a place where love and fear blurred. Then came the bridal shower. Aunt Sharon invited me, though the message felt more like a summons. "We need to talk," she'd written. "You've upset Lily. Come make peace." Make peace. Another phrase that meant give in. When I arrived at Sharon's house, Lily was at the center of the living room, everyone surrounding her like petals around a flower. She lit up the moment she saw me, not with joy, but triumph. "Oh, look," she said loudly, "she came." I forced a smile. "Hi, Lily." She hugged me too tightly, whispering hotly into my ear, "Don't ruin today." I pulled back, shaken. The room smelled like roses and vanilla cake. Pink decorations covered every surface. The bridesmaids hovered near Lily, shooting me looks that were polite on the surface but sharp underneath. Aunt Sharon clinked her glass. "Everyone," she said, "we need a moment of family unity." My throat tightened. Unity meant pressure. Lily stepped forward. "I want to make sure we're all aligned before the wedding," she said sweetly, "especially about the reception." I stood stiff, dread rising. "Ava's giving a toast," she continued, "a special one." A few bridesmaids clapped. Aunt Sharon smiled. I swallowed hard. "I'm doing a toast, yes, but not—" Lily raised her hand sharply. "You promised." My skin prickled. "No, I didn't." She stepped close, her voice low but venomous. "Don't embarrass me." Something snapped inside me. "I'm not giving you my home," I whispered fiercely. "Not now, not ever." The entire room went silent. Aunt Sharon looked as if I'd confessed to a crime. The bridesmaids stared. Lily's smile cracked like glass. "You'll regret that," she whispered. A chill slid down my spine. It felt less like a threat and more like a prophecy. That night, when I finally escaped to my car, I sat behind the wheel trembling. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My breath came too fast. My sister wasn't just upset, she was planning something. And I didn't know it yet, but the stage for the wedding trap was already built. Lights ready, cameras ready, 200 witnesses waiting. And Lily? She was counting on me walking right into it. I didn't sleep the night after the bridal shower. I tossed under my sheets, replaying Lily's voice, low, cold, deliberate, when she whispered, "You'll regret that." It chased me through the dark like a shadow that refused to disappear. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in Aunt Sharon's living room, smiling like a woman who had already chosen her battlefield. By morning, my body felt hollow. I stood in my kitchen staring at my coffee maker, watching the steam rise but not tasting anything. The penthouse, usually the one place that grounded me, felt claustrophobic, as if every wall held an echo of Lily's threat. I kept telling myself she was emotional, overwhelmed, stressed from planning a wedding. But another part of me, the part that had survived every childhood storm she caused, knew better. This wasn't about emotion, it was about entitlement. That afternoon, I forced myself to go into the marketing firm. Work had always been my escape, the place where no one cared about my family drama, only deadlines, analytics, client briefs. But the moment I stepped into the office, Jess moved toward me with wide eyes. "Hey," she said softly. "Are you okay?" I bit the inside of my cheek. "Is it that obvious?" "You're pale as drywall. You look like you haven't slept in 3 days, and you're walking like you're waiting for someone to jump out and stab you." "Well," I muttered, dropping my bag onto my desk, "that's not far from how it feels." Jess sat on the edge of my desk. "Let me guess, your sister?" I nodded. "Did something else happen?" I hesitated, then nodded again. "She's planning something, and she isn't even hiding it." Jess frowned. "Ava, are you safe?" The question tightened something in my chest. Safe. The word felt too fragile. "Physically, yes," I said. "Emotionally, mentally?" I shook my head. "Not even close." Before Jess could reply, my phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Sharon. "Be a good sister this week. She needs you. Don't make this harder." I stared at it until the letters blurred. Jess leaned over my shoulder. "Oh, hell no," she muttered. "That's not support. That's manipulation." I swallowed hard. That's how my family communicates. Guilt first, love second. Jess squeezed my arm. "You don't deserve that." But even her words couldn't drown out the growing unease inside me. Later that day, during lunch, I stepped outside to get air. The October humidity wrapped around me like a damp blanket. I walked toward the waterfront where sailboats drifted lazily across the blue-green tide. People laughed, jogged, ate ice cream. They looked so normal. I wished I felt even a fraction of that normal. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lily. "Need to talk. It's important." I didn't want to reply. I didn't want to give her another opening. But the knot in my stomach tightened. I typed, "About what?" Her answer came instantly. "About your toast. The announcement. The rehearsal dinner is Friday. We need to rehearse what you'll say." My fingers froze. My palms went cold. I read the message 3 times before my legs finally moved, pulling me to the nearest bench. I sat down, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. She wasn't just hoping I'd give her the penthouse. She expected it. She was planning the moment. She was writing the script. And she had cast me as her obedient supporting character. My pulse hammered. I typed slowly, "There is no announcement. There never will be. Stop asking." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then disappeared. Finally, her response came. "We'll talk later, in person." A chill ran through me. I knew that tone. Lily wasn't negotiating, she was preparing. When I returned to the office, my boss, Mason, pulled me aside. "You okay?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe of his office. "I'm fine," I lied. He studied me in silence. "You're one of my best employees. If something's wrong, take time off." Time off. The irony almost made me laugh. Time off meant more time for Lily to corner me, more time for her to orchestrate whatever plan she was building. "I'll be fine," I repeated, even though I knew I wouldn't. By evening, I was back in my penthouse, standing at my balcony doors, staring at the glowing harbor lights. The city reflected in the water, long streaks of gold and white. Behind me, the room felt too quiet. Then my building's intercom buzzed. I flinched. "Ms. Greenwood," the guard said, sounding uncomfortable. "Your sister is downstairs." My heart dropped. "She says she needs to speak with you right now." I pressed my palm against the marble counter, steadying myself. "Tell her I'm not available." "She said she'll wait." I closed my eyes. Of course she would. "How long has she been there?" "Almost 30 minutes. I pressed my lips together. Lily had always been relentless. When she wanted something, she didn't stop until she pushed the world into giving it to her. "Please ask her to leave," I said. I could hear the guard hesitate. "She's emotional." "Then she should go home." I hung up before he could argue. For the next hour, I paced the penthouse. Every knock of the elevator echoed in my bones. Every shadow on the balcony reflections made me jump. My heartbeat felt out of sync, like it was trying to escape my chest. Finally, at 10:14 p.m., I received a single text. From Lily, "You're doing this to yourself." I didn't respond. The next morning, she posted a vague message on Facebook. "Funny how some people show their true colors right before a wedding. Family can be disappointing." Underneath, dozens of comments flooded in. "You don't deserve that, babe." "You're the sweetest person alive." "Cut toxic people out before the big day." "So excited for the wedding." "Haters gonna hate." I felt the anger rising up my throat like bile. She was painting me as the villain, the ungrateful sister, the bitter one, the problem. And no one knew the truth, that she was orchestrating a public ambush meant to strip me of my home. That afternoon, I found out something that made my stomach flip. Jess burst into my office. "Ava, oh my God!" I looked up, confused. "What?" She handed me her phone. "Look at this." On Lily's Instagram story was a poll. Should family give big gifts at weddings? Options: absolutely. If they love you, yes. Thousands of views, hundreds of votes, comments flooding in. Yes, family should support the newlyweds. Parents and siblings should step up. Big gifts show love. My sister gave us her condo. Best gift ever. My blood ran cold. She was setting the stage, framing the expectation, priming an audience. She wanted every guest at the wedding to believe a huge gift from me was the norm, that not giving her my penthouse would make me look heartless. Jess whispered, "She's preparing a trap." I closed my eyes. Deep down, I had known. But seeing it this blatant made something break inside me. Cleanly, sharply, like a snapped wire. My sister didn't want my presence. She didn't want my love. She wanted my property. She wanted to take from me the one thing I had built without anyone's help. And she wasn't going to stop until she got it. That night, as I stood in my silent apartment, staring out at the dark Charleston water, I realized something terrifying. Lily wasn't just manipulating me. She was preparing to destroy me publicly if I didn't give her what she wanted. And the wedding? That wasn't just an event. It was the perfect stage. The perfect trap, the perfect opportunity. 200 guests, 200 witnesses, 200 phones recording, and Lily, my own sister, was counting on the pressure to force me to surrender. But she didn't know something. I was done being her target, done being her ATM, done being her silent shadow. She hadn't realized yet. I was preparing too. I didn't want to go to the bridesmaids' brunch. Every cell in my body fought it. But skipping it would only give Lily ammunition, another chance for her to paint me as the problem. So I chose the polite battlefield over the silent one, and drove to the pastel blue Charleston townhouse where her maid of honor lived. The second I stepped inside, I knew I didn't belong there. Everything was white lace, pink champagne, and curated perfection. A flower wall shimmered with faux peonies and gold script spelling Bride Tribe. A mimosa bar glittered with crystal flutes. The women all wore matching robes printed with lilies, fitting in a nauseating way. When I walked in, conversations dimmed just slightly. Not enough for a stranger to notice, but enough that I felt the shift. All eyes, all smiles too wide, too practiced. Lily turned toward me, her grin bright enough to blind. You'd never know she had threatened me 2 nights before. "Ava," she cooed. "You made it." I forced a smile. "Of course." She glided over, kissed my cheek, and murmured in a voice only I could hear. "Try not to ruin today, too." I felt the sting before the words even landed, but I didn't flinch. That would be giving her what she wanted. She pulled back and squeezed my hand like a loving sister, an actress hitting her mark. The brunch passed slowly, painfully. Lily soaked in the attention, her ring, her dress, her plans, her fairy tale. Every story she told was a performance, every laugh rehearsed, every glance toward me was a subtle reminder. You don't matter unless I say you do. Halfway through, the maid of honor, Julia, clinked a spoon against her glass. "Before we toast," she said sweetly, "we have a fun little game." Groans and giggles filled the room. Julia held up a stack of cards. I asked Lily and Brett to answer questions separately. Let's see how well they know each other. A classic bridal shower game. Innocent enough. Until Julia said, "And at the end we'll read Lily's answer to the bonus question about the most meaningful part of the wedding." Lily's eyes snapped to mine. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what that question would be. I sat still, my fingers tightening around my napkin while they cruised through the trivia. First date, favorite movie, who said, "I love you," first. Laughter bounced off the walls. Champagne fizzed. The sugary smell of pastries made me queasy. Then Julia lifted the last card. "Okay, and here's the bonus." Lily's posture straightened, eager, glowing. "What," Julia read, "is the biggest, most meaningful gift you expect to receive at the wedding?" The room fell quiet with anticipation. Lily smiled, slow and triumphant. She looked directly at me. I braced myself. Julia turned the card and read aloud, "A home, a fresh start in a place where our future family can grow." A few bridesmaids gasped. One pressed her hands over her heart. "That's beautiful," someone murmured. Another added, "That's the best wedding gift ever." Lily wasn't even pretending to hide the trap anymore. This wasn't subtle. This was setting the expectation publicly, normalizing it, making it seem generous, sweet, deserved. I felt dozens of eyes peek toward me, quick glances, curious glimmers. Lily leaned across the table, her voice soft and angelic. I didn't say who it's from yet. Her eyes sparkled with something sharp. "Did you want to guess, Ava?" It was a knife disguised as an invitation. My throat tightened, my pulse hammered. The room spun, not dramatically but quietly, like the air had thinned. I gave a small smile, steady but cold. "No, I'm sure you have your own plans." "Nah." Lily blinked, surprised I hadn't taken the bait. Julia moved on quickly, sensing tension she couldn't quite define. When the brunch ended, I stayed behind to help clean up, mostly to avoid being cornered by Lily outside. Julia packed leftover pastries into boxes while humming softly. When she finally looked at me, her expression dimmed. "She's under a lot of stress," she said carefully. "That's generous," I replied. Julia hesitated. "Ava, she's been saying things." My chest tightened. "What kind of things?" "She said you've been acting strange, withdrawing, making her worried." "Of course she did." Julia fidgeted with a stack of plates. "I honestly didn't know what to believe. But seeing you today, you seem normal. Tired maybe, but not—" She stopped. Not how she described. Described. Past tense. Like Lily had been building a narrative. "She said you were dealing with mental health issues," Julia whispered. "That's why I'm telling you, so you're not blindsided." My breath stilled. "What?" "She said you've been paranoid, forgetting things, making impulsive decisions." My blood froze. She was laying groundwork, preparing witnesses, preparing testimony, preparing a case. And I suddenly knew, like a punch to the gut, Lily's plan was much bigger than a public announcement. She wasn't just trying to get my penthouse. She was preparing to paint me as unstable, unfit, unreliable, the kind of person whose word couldn't be trusted, whose decisions might need to be overseen. I sat down hard in a nearby chair. "Thank you for telling me." Julia looked relieved. "I didn't want you walking into the wedding without knowing." I left the brunch with a hollow ache in my chest. Outside, the Charleston sun was blinding, reflecting off the cobblestones and pastel houses like nothing bad could ever happen there. But something bad was happening, and it was accelerating. That evening, I visited my aunt, someone I foolishly still hoped would be on my side. She greeted me at her porch with a forced smile. "Ava, sweetheart, I've been waiting to talk to you." Inside, she poured sweet tea into mismatched glasses. Her house smelled like lemon polish and old books. I'd always loved that smell. It reminded me of childhood summers. But tonight it felt different. "Aunt Sharon," I started. "Lily is—" She raised a hand. "Ava, your sister is getting married. She needs support, not friction." I stared at her. "You don't even know what happened." She sighed dramatically. "She said you've been lashing out, that you've been volatile." The word sliced through me. Volatile. That wasn't just criticism. It was character assassination. "Aunt Sharon," my voice cracked. "She's lying." "Is she?" Sharon asked softly. "Or are you refusing to see how much she needs from you right now?" I sat back, stunned. "She wants my home." Aunt Sharon didn't react with the shock I expected. Instead, she exhaled. "Ava, you're one person living in a huge place. Lily wants children. She needs space. She deserves a chance." I stared at her, my hands trembling. "I worked for that penthouse. I earned it. It's my security." "And Lily is your family," Sharon pressed. "Family sacrifices." I felt the room tilt. "I've sacrificed for her my whole life." Her voice softened. "Then what's one more thing?" Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, but cleanly, like a thread pulling free. "One more thing?" I whispered. "Lily has taken things from me for 20 years. My time, my money, my peace. And now she wants the roof over my head?" Aunt Sharon's expression hardened. "Ava, she said you'd react this way." My breath hitched. "She said what?" "She said you'd make everything about you, that you'd twist it, that you'd refuse to help even if it was the right thing." I stared at the woman who had once read bedtime stories to me. "You already chose her side," I said. Silence. Outside, cicadas buzzed in the darkening air. A dog barked somewhere down the street. I felt detached from everything, like someone had cut a rope tying me to the moment. I stood slowly. "Thank you for the tea." "Ava," Sharon said gently, "don't make this harder." I didn't answer. I walked out of her house feeling like the world had shrunk, turning familiar faces into strangers. When I got home, the penthouse felt different, less like a refuge, more like a fortress someone was trying to breach. I poured a glass of water, set it on the counter, and stared at the city lights blinking against the night sky. My hands trembled, my heart pounded, but then something steadier rose inside me. Something colder, something stronger. Resolve. For the first time in our lives, I saw Lily clearly. Not as my sister, not as the girl I grew up protecting, but as a woman who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. And she was gathering allies, creating a narrative, preparing witnesses. This wasn't a fight about a penthouse. This was a coordinated campaign by a woman who wanted my life. And I knew with chilling certainty. The wedding was going to be the war zone, and the slap? That wasn't the beginning. It was the first bullet. By the time the rehearsal dinner rolled around, I felt like I was walking into enemy territory. Every instinct in my body warned me not to go, but every voice in my family, real or imagined, whispered that skipping it would only give Lily more ammunition. So I forced myself into a slate blue dress, tied my hair back, and drove to the historic Charleston Inn where the dinner was being held. The moment I stepped through the arched doorway, I felt dozens of eyes flicker toward me. Not openly hostile, not openly welcoming, just assessing, measuring, waiting. Lily had been busy. The dining hall was beautiful, exposed brick washed in golden light, long wooden tables draped in eucalyptus garlands, candles flickering in hurricane glass. A string quartet played in the corner. Plates of oysters, shrimp, and bite-sized crab cakes made the air smell like the harbor. But beneath all the elegance, I felt the tension like static electricity. It crackled the moment I entered the room. Brett's mother spotted me first. She gave a tight smile touched with sympathy and approached. "Ava," she said gently, "how nice of you to come." It was the tone people used at funerals. "Of course I came," I replied. She squeezed my arm with a firmness that surprised me. "Be patient with her. Weddings. Bring out emotions." I nodded even though my pulse jumped. Then I saw Lily. She stood at the head of the room, radiant in a white rehearsal dress that shimmered under the lights. Her hair was curled perfectly, her skin glowing, her smile bright and warm, until her eyes met mine. Then her expression shifted, not dramatically but enough. Displeasure, contempt, calculation. She excused herself from a group of guests and drifted toward me, her steps slow and graceful, like a swan gliding toward a target beneath the water. "You're late," she murmured. "I'm 10 minutes early." She tilted her head, amusement flickering over her lips. "In your world, maybe. In mine, you're late." There was no point arguing. I inhaled, exhaled, and prepared for impact. "I need to talk to you," she continued softly. "Privately." "Lily, don't. This isn't a choice." She grabbed my wrist, not enough to hurt but enough to control, and guided me toward a side hallway lined with vintage photographs. Her perfume, sweet, floral, nauseating, wrapped around me like a rope. When we were alone, she released my wrist and folded her hands, composure snapping into place. "Let's skip the pleasantries," she said. "Tomorrow is the wedding. You know what you're supposed to do." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I won't be announcing anything about the penthouse." A small, brittle smile flickered across her face. "Ava, don't be dramatic." "You've made this dramatic, Lily." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This is the biggest day of my life. Everything has to be perfect, and that includes you doing something meaningful for me." "You want my home," I said quietly. "Not a gift, not support. You want the roof over my head." "It's not like that," she snapped. "It's a symbol, a gesture, a fresh start for me and Brett." "It's theft." Her expression hardened, the mask slipping. "You're being selfish." "I'm being sane," I countered. She stared at me for several seconds, her eyes darkening with something sharp and ugly. Then she whispered, "You have no idea the position you're putting me in." I frowned. "What position?" "People already know," she said. "I've told them. Everyone is expecting something big. If you don't give me the penthouse, it will humiliate me. Ice slid down my spine. "You told people?" I said, voice barely above a whisper. She didn't even pretend to deny it. "Of course. You had your chance to be the generous big sister. Now the narrative is in motion." "Lily, if you don't announce it," she continued, "you'll make me look like a fool, and I will not let that happen." Something inside me snapped. "Stop trying to weaponize your wedding." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Everyone uses their wedding. Social currency is a thing." I stared at her. "This isn't currency. This is abuse." She fell silent for a moment, like the word hit her harder than she expected. Then she leaned in until only inches separated us. "Ava, if you don't give me that penthouse tomorrow, I swear you'll regret it more than anything in your life." I took a step back. "Are you threatening me?" She shrugged. "If that's how you choose to interpret it?" My breath trembled. "I'm not giving you my home, and I'm not participating in whatever spectacle you're planning." Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "You will." Or what? "Or I will make sure every single person in that ballroom sees you for what you really are." "And what's that?" I asked, her eyes narrowed. "A selfish, unstable woman who can't even support her own family." A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. "That's not who I am. It's who they think you are." I stared at her, stunned. "You really think you can control the truth?" Lily smiled, a slow, venomous curl of lips. "The truth," she murmured, "is whatever people believe." She brushed past me, her dress grazing my hip like a warning, and glided back toward the dining hall. Voices rose, laughter, glasses clinked, music played, life moved on. But I stayed frozen in the hallway, my pulse racing. I knew one thing with certainty. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a wedding, it would be a battlefield. The rehearsal dinner carried on like a show. Lily was dazzling, charming, magnetic. Guests adored her. Brett toasted her beauty and poise. Mothers cried, fathers bragged, bridesmaids squealed about tomorrow. And every so often, Lily glanced toward me with that same cold smile, like she was reminding me of the script she had written. Halfway through dinner, Brett's aunt leaned toward me. "Lily told us she's so grateful for you. She said you're giving her the most meaningful gift of all." My heart sank. "What did she say I was giving her?" I asked. "A home," she said warmly. "Something that will set her and Brett up for life." I swallowed hard. "She said that?" "Oh yes, she said she couldn't wait for the announcement." The room tilted. My hands shook under the table. This wasn't just manipulation. She had prepared witnesses, scripted reactions, preceded expectations. She had created a public narrative so strong that my refusal would look like cruelty, and everyone would pity her, everyone would judge me. The dinner ended with applause, toasts, and camera flashes. Guests drifted out with hugs and excitement for the big day. Lily basked in the attention. The perfect bride. I walked to my car slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the driver's seat, I didn't start the engine. I sat there, staring at the steering wheel as my breath hitched. I had never felt so cornered. Not as a child, competing for scraps of love. Not as a teenager, covering Lily's mistakes. Not even as an adult, writing checks she never repaid. This was different. This was calculated, strategic, cruel. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I picked it up, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Greenwood, please call me when possible. I believe you may need legal advice. Judge R. Hale." My blood ran cold. I stared at the message, heart thundering. A judge, at the rehearsal dinner? No, someone who had heard whispers? Someone connected to the venue? Someone who had been watching quietly? Another message came. "Your sister has made concerning statements. I will explain when we speak." I leaned back in my seat, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. Tomorrow, Lily expected me to stand beside her and deliver her fantasy. But tomorrow, a judge would be in the room, watching, listening. and for the first time, I felt the faintest flicker of hope. Because if Lily wanted a public battle, she was about to get one. And this time, I wouldn't be standing alone. I woke up the morning before the wedding with a pit in my stomach so heavy it felt like it had its own heartbeat. My phone buzzed repeatedly on the nightstand. Texts from Jess, reminders from the wedding planner, a missed call from an unknown number I suspected belonged to Judge Hale. But none of it mattered in that moment. All I could feel was dread, thick and suffocating. I sat up slowly, the room blurry in the early light. My penthouse was quiet, the Charleston harbor still half asleep beyond the windows. Nothing in this space had changed, yet everything inside me had. I wasn't just a sister attending a wedding anymore. I was a target. Lily had maneuvered her pieces like she'd studied the board for months. And now she expected to deliver checkmate tomorrow in front of 200 witnesses. I stood, forced myself into the shower, and let the hot water beat against the back of my neck. I tried to breathe, to think, to steady myself. When I finally stepped out, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail, from the unknown number. I pressed play. "Ava, this is Judge Rebecca Hale. I apologize for the intrusion, but I'm concerned. I heard your sister discussing the penthouse at the rehearsal dinner in a way that raised red flags, legally and ethically. Please call me as soon as you're able." My breath hitched. She'd been there. She'd heard enough. She'd recognized something I'd been trying so hard to convince myself wasn't real. I dialed her number before I could lose courage. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Greenwood?" "Yes," I breathed. "Thank you for calling. I don't know what to do." Her voice softened. "I'd like to meet. Some conversations shouldn't happen over the phone. Are you available this morning?" I agreed, barely trusting my voice. We chose a quiet cafe near the courthouse, a place with brick walls, steaming mugs, and a hush that felt safe. When I walked in, she stood to greet me. She was in her mid-50s, elegant silver hair pulled into a low twist, navy blazer crisp and professional. Her eyes, not cold, not harsh, were sharp in the way only people who've seen too much can be. "Thank you for coming," she said, motioning for me to sit. I hadn't realized how much I was shaking until I wrapped my hands around the warm mug the barista brought. "I don't know where to start," I said. "Start with the truth," she replied gently. So I did. I told her about the penthouse, the manipulation, the mounting pressure, the brunch, the rehearsal dinner, the whispered lies Lily had fed to our family, her friends, the guests, the way she was shaping a narrative so carefully it felt like a weapon, and then I told her the part that felt hardest to say aloud. "She threatened me," I whispered, "said I'd regret it if I didn't give her what she wants." Judge Hale didn't flinch. People often threaten family members when power and money are involved. But threats aren't just words, they're strategy. Your sister is building a foundation, a case against your competency, your stability, your credibility. She's using public perception as leverage. A tremor ran through me. "That's exactly what it feels like." "It's because that's what it is," she said calmly. I swallowed hard. "Can she actually do anything, legally?" Judge Hale paused, studying me. "Do you want the truth or the comforting version?" "The truth." "She can try to petition for guardianship, power of attorney, or even emergency intervention if she convinces people you're unwell. Once someone lays groundwork, it's easier than you think." My stomach twisted painfully. "And the wedding?" "Is her stage," she said simply. "Her opportunity to create public evidence. All she needs is enough people saying you acted unstable, erratic, confused, or cruel." I felt dizzy. "She's been planting seeds for weeks." "I know," she said. "I heard her last night telling guests that you were struggling emotionally, that she was worried about you, that you were pulling away, forgetting things." My throat burned. Hearing it from a stranger hurt in a way Lily's own words never could. It made it real. "Why would she do this?" I whispered. Judge Hale folded her hands. "Because you have something she wants, and she believes you don't deserve it as much as she does. Entitlement is a dangerous thing when paired with desperation. I stared at her, voice barely audible. What do I do? She took a breath, her tone steady and decisive, the tone of a woman who had guided countless people through storms worse than mine. You keep your boundaries. You do not hand over your property. You do not respond to bait. And tomorrow you stay calm no matter what happens. That'll look weak, I said. It'll look sane, she corrected. And that's what matters. If she escalates, and she will, you must not, emotionally or physically. I nodded slowly. She reached into her purse and slid a card across the table. This is the name of an attorney I trust. Someone who specializes in family coercion and asset protection. If things escalate after the wedding, call him immediately. I picked up the card with trembling fingers. Thank you. I'll be at the ceremony tomorrow, she added. Not as a judge, as an observer. If something happens, I will be a witness. Just remain composed. The truth is a quiet, steady thing. It reveals itself. Her presence calmed something inside me I hadn't realized was spiraling. We spoke for another 20 minutes, but it wasn't strategy. It was grounding. She reminded me of something I had forgotten. I wasn't alone. When we parted ways, her words echoed through me with unexpected strength. Your sister underestimates you because she sees you through a lens you outgrew years ago. Tomorrow you're going to show her, and everyone else, the woman you actually are. I returned to the penthouse, feeling steadier than I had in days. For the first time, I wasn't drowning. I was swimming, still surrounded by dark water, still unsure of the shore, but moving, not sinking. I spent the afternoon preparing myself mentally. I laid out my dress, I packed a small clutch. I practiced breathing until my pulse slowed, and then, out of nowhere, there was a knock at my door. Sharp, repeated, urgent. My heart lurched. I approached the peephole slowly. It was my mother. And behind her, unmistakably, Lily. My lungs froze. I didn't open the door, but I unlocked the chain just enough to crack it an inch. Ava, my mother said, her tone warm but strained. We need to talk. No, I said softly. Not tonight. Lily stepped forward, expression tight. Stop being dramatic and let us in. I held the door firmly. No. My mother's face twisted with worry. Sweetheart, your sister is distraught. She's been crying all day. Lily wiped beneath her eye, dry, perfectly dry. This is supposed to be the happiest time of my life, and you're ruining it. I felt something inside me harden. I'm not discussing the penthouse, I said. My mother stiffened. Ava, please, that home is far too big for you. Be reasonable. My breath trembled. This isn't about reason. This is about ownership. It's about family, my mother said sharply. It's about supporting your sister. And what about supporting me? I whispered. For once, just once, I wanted her to pick me, to defend me, to protect me. But she didn't even hesitate. You don't need protecting, she said coldly. You've always been the strong one. And there it was. The lifelong justification for every time she'd excused Lily's cruelty. She's fragile. She needs help. She can't handle disappointment. And I, apparently, could handle anything. No, I said, voice steady. Not this. Lily's mask cracked. If you embarrass me tomorrow... I'm not embarrassing you, I whispered. I'm saving myself. She lunged forward like she might wedge herself through the crack in the door. You're going to regret this, she hissed. My voice didn't shake when I answered. No, I'm finally stopping the regret. And I closed the door. My mother called my name twice, knocked again, pleaded, then sighed in frustration. Finally, their footsteps retreated down the hall. I waited until the elevator dinged, then slid down the door, breath shaking. It felt like the earth had cracked open, like something irreversible had happened. But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the fear, beneath the grief of losing the family I'd tried so hard to hold on to, there was steel. Tomorrow would be the battle Lily had been preparing for. But I wasn't walking into it defenseless. Judge Hale would be there. The truth would be there. And for the first time in my life, I would not be silent. I woke up on the morning of the wedding with a kind of stillness I didn't recognize. Not peace. No, peace was too soft for what I felt. This was something sharper. A quiet that hummed under my skin, the kind you hear right before a storm cracks open the sky. Charleston was already bright when I stepped onto my balcony. The harbor glittered like nothing bad could ever happen there. Sailboats bobbed lazily in the distance. People walked dogs, cars honked faintly on the Battery. The world was behaving as if today wasn't going to change anything. But I knew better. Today was the day my sister planned to ruin me. Publicly, loudly, permanently, unless I handed over my home like it was a party favor. I sipped lukewarm coffee and tried to swallow past the tightness in my throat. My phone buzzed. "Jess, you ready? Want me to drive you, or slash tires if needed?" I smiled despite everything. No slashing. "I'll meet you there." Another buzz. "Ava, you don't have to go." I stared at the message. For a moment, a long moment, I imagined staying home, curling up on the couch, locking the door, shutting the world out. But Lily would twist that too. Ava is unstable. Ava is unpredictable. Ava ruined my wedding. No. Hiding would only give her more ammunition. "I'm going." I put the phone down and took a deep breath. "You will stay calm," I whispered to myself. "You will not escalate. You will not fold." And somewhere deep inside, a voice I barely recognized answered, "You will not let her win." The wedding venue was a waterfront estate with sprawling lawns, white roses everywhere, and a sparkling canopy stretched above rows of chairs overlooking the harbor. The sun glowed against the water, bouncing light across the entire setup like someone had designed it specifically for photographs. I parked behind the catering vans and walked toward the main entrance, heels clicking against the stone walkway. Guests were already arriving, their laughter floating through the warm morning air. Jess stood near the entrance, waving frantically. "You look gorgeous," she said, grabbing my hands, "but also like you haven't slept since the Civil War." "I'm fine," I said. "You're lying," she replied. "But it's okay, I'll be your escape route if needed." She squeezed my arm, then lowered her voice. "Ava, don't let her corner you, and don't let her twist anything." "I won't." Inside the venue, everything glittered. Chandeliers, marble floors, white tulips, champagne towers. It looked like a magazine spread, expensive, idyllic, curated. But the moment I stepped into the hall, I felt the shift. The eyes, people staring before looking away, whispering, smiling at Lily's mother but not at me. Two bridesmaids turned, saw me, and quickly straightened their posture as if preparing for a show. They already had their roles, and I already had mine, the villain. I took a steady breath, shoulders stiffening. Let them watch. I was done breaking myself to fit Lily's narrative. The ceremony itself was beautiful, painfully beautiful. Lily walked down the aisle like she'd stepped out of a bridal advertisement, radiant, glistening, every detail perfect. Brett cried, guests sighed, children tossed petals in the air, but beneath that beauty was something rotten. A bride who wanted my home more than she wanted my happiness. A sister who weaponized love until it wasn't love anymore. Every time her gaze drifted toward me, there was an edge behind it. Something sharp, something hungry. And sitting 2 rows behind me, deliberately, silently, was Judge Hale. She met my eyes once, gave a small nod. Stay steady. After the vows, the kiss, the applause, guests drifted toward the ballroom where the reception would be held. A string quartet played while servers carried champagne flutes across the room. I tried to breathe, to ground myself. But then someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Brett. His face was tight, nervous. His black suit clung too neatly to his frame. His eyes shifted left and right before settling on mine. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. My pulse quickened. About what? He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I didn't want to get involved, I really didn't, but Lily's emotional today and I'm just trying to keep everything from blowing up. She wants me to give her my penthouse, I said flatly. His shoulders sagged. I know. And you're okay with that? He hesitated. I mean, it would help. Help who? I asked. You or her? He swallowed. Both of us. My stomach twisted. Brett, that place is my life savings, my safety net, my home. I get that, he said, but Lily said you've been having trouble, that you might want to downsize. My breath caught. She said what? That you've been overwhelmed, forgetting things, acting out of character. My jaw tightened. She's lying. He sighed. Maybe. But she's my wife now. I have to trust her. Of course he did. Lily crafted her narrative perfectly. Emotional enough to seem genuine. Fragile enough to seem sympathetic. Vague enough to sound true. I'm not giving you my home, I said, voice steady. He nodded slowly, resigned. Then just, don't make a scene tonight, please. A bitter laugh escaped me. Me? Make a scene? He didn't answer. Just walked away, shoulders slumped. I stood there in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by crystal lights and laughter, feeling like the floor had tilted beneath me. It was clear now. He wasn't a victim. He wasn't confused. He wasn't trapped. He was complicit. The reception began with cheers, clinking glasses, loud music. People danced, ate, celebrated. Tables overflowed with flowers and candles. Lily and Brett looked like royalty as they posed for photos beneath a floral arch. I stayed quiet at my table, Jess beside me trying to anchor me. Breathe, she whispered. She's not winning today. I nodded, but my breath still shook. Then the DJ tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the toasts. My heart dropped. Oh, hell, Jess muttered. Lily turned to me across the room, her smile wide, sparkling, vicious. As maid of honor, the wedding planner announced, we'd love to invite the bride's sister, Ava Greenwood, up to say a few words. The spotlight hit me. I felt every pair of eyes swing in my direction. Phones lifted, cameras pointed, whispers rose. This was it. The moment Lily had orchestrated so perfectly, the moment she expected me to break. Jess grabbed my hand. Ava, you don't have to go up there. But I did, not for Lily, for myself. I stood slowly, smoothed my dress, lifted my chin, and walked toward the stage. Each step echoed like a countdown. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. My palms were damp, but my spine stayed straight. Judge Hale watched intently. Brett watched nervously. Lily watched with the satisfied expression of someone about to win a game they'd rigged from the beginning. I reached the microphone. The room quieted. 200 guests. 200 witnesses, 200 expectations. I took a breath. My name is Ava, I began, and I'm Lily's older sister. My voice was steady. I want to wish Lily and Brett a future filled with kindness, honesty, and mutual respect. A ripple of whispers moved through the room. Lily's face faltered, just slightly. And, I continued, I hope they always remember that love isn't measured in material gifts. It's measured in integrity. Lily stiffened. I knew she wanted me to say it next. The thing she'd told everyone to expect, the announcement she'd rehearsed in her head 100 times. But I didn't. I simply said, that's all. The room went silent, shocked, breathless, confused. Then Lily stood so quickly her chair screeched against the floor. Really? She snapped, voice loud enough to echo. That's it? My chest tightened. You couldn't even do this one thing for me? People shifted uncomfortably. I stepped back from the microphone. I said what I came to say. No, she said sharply, marching toward me. You didn't. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you promised me. I didn't promise you anything. And then, like a flash, her hand whipped across my face. The sound cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. Gasps, screams, phones up everywhere. My cheek burned, my ears rang, my breath stilled. A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Oh my God. Did she just hit her? Is this part of the speech? She slapped her own sister. Lily was panting, eyes wild. You selfish, unstable woman. You'd rather hoard a penthouse than support your own family. Judge Hale stood. Jess stood. Several guests stood. The room erupted. And I stayed still, silent, steady. I looked right at Lily, my sister, my enemy, and knew everything had just changed. Because she hadn't expected this many witnesses. She hadn't expected a judge in the crowd. She hadn't expected me to refuse to break. And as I walked off that stage without a single word, without a single tear, one truth finally crystallized in my bones. She had built her entire plan on the assumption that I would shatter. But I didn't shatter. And that was the beginning of her downfall. I didn't make it 10 steps past the ballroom doors before my legs began to shake. The noise inside, the gasps, the whispers, the rising chaos faded behind me like someone had suddenly stuffed my ears with cotton. All I could hear was the echo of Lily's slap pulsing in my skull. My cheek throbbed in a slow, spreading burn. My breath stuttered. I pressed my palm against the nearest wall, grounding myself against the cold marble. The hallway was dim and quiet, a stark contrast to the glittering circus I'd just walked out of. I closed my eyes, trying to steady the nausea twisting in my stomach. Ava, I turned. Judge Hale stood a few feet away, her expression sharpened like a blade. Not pity, not shock, purpose. Are you hurt? She asked quietly. I shook my head. I'm fine. You're not, she said gently. But you will be. She stepped closer, her heels soft against the carpet. What happened in that room was witnessed by 200 people, recorded by half of them, and it wasn't a family argument. It was an attack. I swallowed hard, the tension lodged in my throat. She wanted to force me into giving her everything. I know, Judge Hale said, and she just made your case stronger than anything you could have said today. What case? I whispered. The case for protecting yourself. Footsteps approached behind her. Jess jogged down the hallway, eyes wide. Oh my God, Ava! She stopped short when she saw the redness on my cheek. She hit you again? That was on camera. All of it. My stomach twisted. I don't want this to be a public scandal. Jess blinked. Ava, she slapped you in front of 200 people at her wedding reception. It's already a public scandal. I lifted a trembling hand to my cheek. The skin felt hot, tender under my fingertips. Judge Hale's voice softened. Do you want to sit? I nodded. She and Jess guided me to a chair tucked under a small hallway table. I sank into it, the weight of everything suddenly crashing over me. I had done it. I had refused Lily's demand, and she had shown the entire world exactly who she really was. But the victory didn't feel sweet. Not yet. It felt like standing barefoot on shattered glass. Jess crouched beside me. Do you want ice, a drink, a getaway car? I huffed out something like a laugh, though it felt hollow. No ice, Judge Hale said sharply. Bruises can be photographed later. My breath hitched. Photographed? For documentation, she replied, because this isn't over. Jess frowned at me. Ava, did you know she was going to do that? No, I whispered. I just knew she was planning something terrible if I didn't give her the penthouse. Jess's expression hardened. Then we need to get you out of here. No. Judge Hale raised a hand. Leaving now would look unstable to Lily's audience. Let her be the one who spirals. I stared at her. Audience? She met my eyes. Trust me, she still thinks she's performing. The ballroom doors swung open somewhere behind us. Loud music flooded the hallway briefly before fading again as the doors closed. Jess leaned closer. I'll stand guard if she comes out here. I almost laughed again, but the ache in my throat made it impossible. Thank you. Judge Hale lowered her voice. Ava, I need to ask you something serious. Has your sister ever been physically aggressive with you before? I inhaled sharply. Not like that, never publicly, but when we were younger she'd push me or throw things during fights. Nothing I'd call abuse, just her temper. Judge Hale nodded slowly. Temper escalates when entitlement escalates, and entitlement escalates when people sense they're losing control. She really thought she could force me, I whispered. She still does, the judge replied, but now she'll have to change tactics. That slap wasn't an end. It was a beginning. A cold dread rippled through me. A beginning of what? Of escalation. I stared at her, throat dry. She's not going to stop, is she? No, she said calmly. Not until you draw legal boundaries. Everything inside me tightened. Legal boundaries? Lily is not acting like a sibling, she said. She's acting like someone preparing to challenge your autonomy. Jess frowned. Challenge what now? Judge Hale gave me a sympathetic look. Your stability, your competency, your right to control your own assets. My stomach dropped. You mean guardianship? Jess froze. No way, that's insane. Is it? Hale asked softly. You've seen how she talks about your mental state. How she implies you're confused or overwhelmed. How she frames herself as your caretaker even in front of others. That's the first step. I felt my pulse in my ears. Loud, heavy, terrifying. She would never, I began. Jess cut me off. Ava, she absolutely would. I shut my eyes, trying to breathe through the rising panic. Judge Hale placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. You are not alone. You have witnesses now, evidence, and you will have legal protection. Protection from my own sister, I whispered. Yes. The hallway was silent for a moment. Only my heartbeat filled the space between us. Then the ballroom doors burst open again. This time it was Lily. Her dress shimmered under the lights, but her face was twisted, streaked with smeared mascara, red blotches, wild fury. She looked both unhinged and theatrical, like a villain in a soap opera whose scene had gone off script. She stormed toward us, her heels hammering the floor. Jess stood instantly. Back off. Lily ignored her completely. Ava, she spat. What the hell did you think you were doing in there? I stiffened. I told the truth. The truth? She let out a manic laugh. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look unstable. You slapped me across the face. Her eyes flashed. Because you provoked me. No, Lily, I said softly. You did that on your own. A handful of guests had trickled into the hallway, watching the exchange like it was part of the entertainment. Lily turned on them with a trembling smile. She's confused. She's not well. She's been struggling. No, Judge Hale interrupted sharply. Lily froze, the smile wiped from her face. Rebecca, she stammered. What are you? You crossed a line, Hale said, stepping forward. This is not concern. This is control, and it ends today. Lily's mouth fell open. Don't talk to me like that. You don't understand our family. I understand exactly what I witnessed, Hale snapped. And you should be very grateful I'm here today as a guest, rather than acting in my judicial capacity. Lily blinked rapidly, suddenly uncertain. She's lying. Ava's lying. They're both twisting everything. No one is twisting anything, Hale said. Half the room saw what you did. The other half recorded it. Color drained from Lily's face. I watched the realization hit her, the first flicker of fear I'd ever seen in her eyes. Judge Hale continued, cool and unflinching. I strongly suggest you step away from your sister before you do further damage to yourself. Guests murmured behind us. Someone whispered, Is that a judge? Another muttered, This is going to be on the internet. Lily's gaze darted around, panic rising. This is my wedding day, she hissed. Everyone should be focused on me, not this, not her. Jess crossed her arms. You made it about her the moment you hit her. "And the moment you tried to steal her home," Hale added quietly. Lily's face twisted with fury. "It's not stealing. She doesn't even need that place." My breath trembled. "And you do?" "Yes," Lily shouted. "Yes, I do. I deserve something for once." There it was. The raw truth. The thing she'd been hiding under sweetness, under emotional guilt, under strategic manipulation. Judge Hale nodded slowly. "You deserve many things, but not someone else's life." Lily shook her head violently. "No, you're wrong. All of you are wrong. Ava is the one who should be ashamed. She's selfish and unstable and she's trying to turn everyone against me." I stood. For the first time, I stood without shaking. "Lily," I said softly, "you don't need my penthouse. You need help." She recoiled as if slapped. "How dare you? You need help," I repeated. "Real help. Not validation, not gifts, not attention. Help." Tears suddenly spilled down her cheeks. Not soft, grieving tears, but hot, angry ones. "You ruined everything," she whispered. "You ruined my day, my wedding, my life." "No," I said calmly. "You did." She let out a broken sob, spun around, and fled back into the ballroom. A cluster of guests followed her like startled birds. The hallway fell silent again. Jess exhaled shakily. "Holy hell!" Judge Hale turned to me. "Ava," she said firmly, "you need to leave, now, before she comes back with more accusations or tries to escalate again." I nodded, numb. "Okay. I'll walk you to your car," she said, "and tomorrow afternoon we talk to an attorney." I didn't argue. I couldn't. As we walked out of the venue, the wind from the harbor hit my skin and cooled the burning on my cheek. Cars rolled by on the cobblestone road. Sunlight shimmered on the water. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Strength, quiet, real, unshakable. I wasn't the villain in Lily's story. I wasn't the support beam she could break until she got what she wanted. I wasn't weak, unstable, or confused. I was done being her victim. And this time, she'd given me 200 witnesses to prove it. The morning after the wedding felt unreal, like I'd woken up inside someone else's life. My cheek still pulsed with a faint bruise, the memory of Lily's hand imprinted not just on my skin, but somewhere deeper, somewhere I didn't have words for yet. I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold, staring out at the Charleston harbor as if it had answers. Sailboats glided across the water like nothing catastrophic had happened. People walked dogs, children laughed on the sidewalks. Meanwhile, my life had split cleanly in two. Before the slap, after the slap. The knock at my door startled me so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. I approached cautiously, heart thudding. Through the peephole, I saw a woman, mid-30s, blazer, clipboard tucked against her chest. My stomach dropped. I had seen this look before, a social worker. I opened the door, keeping the chain security latch in place. "Can I help you?" "Miss Greenwood," she asked, smiling politely. "My name is Amanda Price. I'm a social worker with Charleston Elder and Adult Services. We received a report of concern about your well-being." My breath caught. A report, filed less than 24 hours after the wedding. Lily hadn't waited a single day. I forced my voice steady. "A report from whom?" "I'm not at liberty to say," she replied gently, "but I'd like to come in and speak with you, if that's okay." I removed the chain. Running would only make me look guilty, and I wasn't guilty, not of anything. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. She entered, immediately scanning my space the way professionals do. Her eyes moved from the clean counters to the organized bookshelves, to the potted herbs on the balcony. Nothing about my home reflected instability. "Would you like some water?" I asked. "That would be lovely, thank you." I poured a glass, noticing my hand shaking only slightly. We sat at the dining table. Her clipboard clicked open. "Miss Greenwood, this is what we call a wellness check. It's not an investigation. It's simply a chance to make sure you're safe, supported, and capable of managing your own affairs. I nodded. Can you tell me about your living situation? I live alone, I said. I've lived here for 3 years. And do you manage all your daily needs independently? Finances, medications, errands? Yes, I said. I'm fully independent. I work full-time at a marketing firm. I drive, I pay my bills on time. I have no cognitive issues. She took notes, her pen gliding smoothly. And do you have family in the area? My mother and sister. And how is your relationship with them lately? I hesitated. Saying too much might sound defensive. Saying too little might sound evasive. We had a disagreement at a wedding yesterday, I said carefully. My sister wanted something from me that I wasn't willing to give. I see, she said, writing again. And the report mentioned concerns about confusion, emotional instability, withdrawal. My pulse spiked. I held her gaze. I'm not confused. I'm not unstable. I'm setting boundaries with someone who doesn't like hearing no. She tapped her pen softly. Would you mind telling me specifically what your sister wanted from you? My home, I said plainly. She wanted me to give her my penthouse as a wedding gift. When I refused, she became aggressive. Aggressive in what way? She slapped me across the face, I said. Her eyes widened. At the wedding? In front of 200 people. She leaned back, visibly shaken. Miss Greenwood, that's assault, and a major red flag. This report may have been an attempt to build a counter-narrative. Exactly, I whispered. She looked at me with something like sadness. I see cases like this more often than people realize. When family sees an opportunity, property, savings, assets, they sometimes create stories to gain control. I know, I said quietly. After 30 more minutes of questions, apartment walkthroughs, and verbal assessments, she clicked her pen closed. Well, she said, standing, I have no concerns about your competency or well-being. I'll file a report stating that you're stable, coherent, responsible, and in no need of intervention. Relief flooded my chest. Thank you. But, she added, her voice softening, I need you to know that my report may not stop your sister. People who pursue control this aggressively rarely stop after the first attempt. A cold tremor moved through me. What do I do? Document everything, she said. Every message, every visit, every threat, and contact the attorney Judge Hale recommended. Today. I nodded. She gave me a sympathetic smile and left. The moment the door closed, I let out a shaky breath. My sister had escalated faster than even Judge Hale predicted. And the worst part? I hadn't seen anything yet. I grabbed the attorney's card from the counter, Richard Calloway, and dialed his number. He picked up on the second ring. Richard Calloway. Mr. Calloway, I said, voice unsteady. My name is Ava Greenwood. Judge Hale gave me your number. I think I need help. His tone shifted instantly, steady, firm, experienced. Tell me what happened. An hour later, I sat in his office downtown. It was small but tidy, with walls lined with law books and photos of him giving lectures. A gentleman in his late 60s with warm eyes and a steel spine. Start from the beginning, he said. So I did. I told him everything, from Lily's first request for my penthouse to the brunch humiliation, from the rehearsal dinner manipulation to the slap that echoed through the ballroom. He took notes furiously, his pen never pausing. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. What you're describing, he said slowly, is a pattern of coercion and financial targeting. That's what Judge Hale said. She was right. He tapped the table with his pen. Your sister believes your property is hers, and she's escalating her efforts as you resist. I exhaled shakily. She filed a false report against me. What happens next? He opened a folder and began pulling out forms. Well, he said, the next step is usually a legal petition. A petition for what? For guardianship, he replied calmly. Emergency guardianship in many cases. I felt dizzy. She would claim I'm incompetent? He nodded. Yes, and she's already laying groundwork. Public displays, claims of confusion, telling people you're unstable. That's why she made a scene at the wedding, I whispered. Exactly, she wanted witnesses. My hands trembled. Can she really win something like that? He studied me closely. If you had no evidence, no witnesses, and no support. Yes, family members win these cases all the time, but you have all three. And I have a judge as a witness, I added quietly. His eyebrows rose. That's extraordinary. That alone could dismantle her entire case. He gave me a reassuring smile. But, he added, you need to act now, today. He slid a stack of documents toward me. First, we update your will. Remove your sister from inheriting anything. My stomach tightened. That feels awful. It feels necessary, he corrected. Next, we create advanced directives for health and finances that give no control to your family. He showed me where to initial and sign. This ensures no one can claim you agreed verbally to sign over property. Everything must be written, formal, and witnessed. I nodded. And lastly, he said, we put you on record as someone taking steps to protect your assets. Courts look favorably on individuals who demonstrate forethought. I signed where he indicated, my hands steadying with each signature. When we finished, he placed the stack of forms into a thick manila folder. You're protected for now, he said, but you must be prepared. Prepared for what? He folded his hands. For your sister to escalate further when she learns you're not letting her win. I swallowed hard. What does that look like? She may confront you again. She may try to get others to sign statements about your mental state. She may push your mother to help her. She may try to contact your workplace. And if she's truly desperate, he hesitated, she may file the guardianship petition anyway. Cold fear wrapped around my spine. What do I do? I whispered. You stay calm, he said. You say nothing. You sign nothing. You let me handle the law. And you prepare for a fight you didn't choose, but one you can win. I sat back, breath shaking, heart pounding. A fight against my own sister, against someone who once braided friendship bracelets with me, shared childhood secrets, whispered dreams under blankets. Now she wanted to strip me of control, autonomy, dignity. Richard closed the folder with a decisive snap. When she realizes you've fortified your defenses, he said quietly, she'll come for you again. And when she does, I whispered, I'll be ready. He nodded once. For the first time, he said, she's up against someone she can't manipulate. I exhaled, a tremor leaving my body. My life was changing, my world was tilting, my family was fracturing. But something inside me, something long buried, had finally awakened. I wasn't Lily's victim anymore, and she had no idea how strong that would make me. By the time the legal petition arrived, I should have been prepared. Richard told me it would come. Judge Hale warned me Lily would escalate. Even the social worker sensed the pattern, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment I opened my front door and found a courier standing there holding a thick envelope stamped with the seal of the Charleston County Courthouse. Miss Greenwood? He asked. My mouth went dry. Yes. He handed me the envelope, nodded, and walked away. I closed the door slowly, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like a drum inside my ribs. The envelope was heavy, official, cold. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. The first line nearly buckled my knees. In the matter of the petition for emergency guardianship over Ava Marie Greenwood. I sucked in a sharp breath and pressed one hand against the table to steady myself. Emergency guardianship. Emergency. The kind used when someone is a danger to themselves or others, or incapable of caring for themselves. It was reserved for people in crisis. It was serious, rare, extreme, abusive when misused. And Lily had filed it against me. My vision blurred as I flipped through the pages. Petitioners. Lily Harper Bennett and Brett Cameron Bennett. My sister and her new husband. Then came the supporting statements. My mother. A pharmacist. A neighbor. Even one of Lily's bridesmaids. My throat closed so tightly I could barely breathe. I sank into a chair and forced myself to read. Each statement was worse than the last. Miss Greenwood has exhibited increasing paranoia. She forgets important conversations. She isolates herself. She lashes out at family members. She appears confused about daily tasks. All lies, all twisting of normal moments into something sinister. My mother's statement hit me hardest. She has always been independent, but lately I fear she cannot care for herself properly. I am deeply worried about her. A tear slipped down my cheek. My mother, who had never once asked how I was doing emotionally, was now claiming she feared for my well-being. Then the pharmacist's statement. I frowned. I hardly even spoke to him except to pick up allergy medication. He had written, Miss Greenwood seemed confused about instructions for her prescription. She repeated questions multiple times. I had never repeated anything. I'd simply asked whether the new formula differed from the old one. Lies, manipulations, exaggerations. But the neighbor's statement gutted me. Paul Henderson, the man who lived 4 doors down. A man I'd had maybe 10 conversations with in 3 years. I've seen her checking her door multiple times a day. She installed a security camera and appears fearful of visitors. She seems paranoid. Yes, I installed a camera. After Lily tried to force her way in. Yes, I checked my door. Because she kept showing up unannounced. None of this was paranoia. It was self-protection. But they twisted it into something else entirely. I kept reading, my pulse hammering. Then came the most horrifying part. Their request to gain full guardianship over me, control over my finances, medical decisions, living arrangements, and overall well-being. If approved, they could take my penthouse, access my bank accounts, sign legal documents on my behalf, control where I lived, commit me somewhere, silence me. They could erase my autonomy with a judge's signature. My hands shook so violently the papers slipped from my fingers and scattered across the table like broken pieces of my life. I felt numb, cold, as if my body had gone into survival mode. This wasn't a fight anymore. This was a war, and my own sister had launched it. I grabbed my phone and dialed Richard's number with trembling fingers. He answered immediately. Ava? It came, I whispered. The petition. Bring it to my office right now. I'm afraid. I know, he said gently. Come anyway, we'll fix this. Half an hour later, I sat in his office while he read every page with an expression that grew more furious by the minute. When he slammed the final page onto the table, I jumped. This is outrageous, he said, voice tight with barely controlled anger. Absolutely outrageous. They fabricated nearly everything. I know. He adjusted his glasses, eyes sharp. We need to build a countercase fast. The hearing is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? My stomach nodded. That soon? Emergency petitions move quickly, he said. That's why they filed it. Speed is their weapon. They think you can't prepare in time. Can I whispered. A slow smile spread across his face. Oh, Ava, you're already way ahead of them. What do you mean? Because you have something they didn't expect, he said confidently. What's that? He leaned back and crossed his arms. A judge who witnessed the triggering event. A social worker who already cleared you. A therapist ready to testify. Multiple co-workers who can speak to your stability. Friends. Neighbors who aren't delusional. Medical records, financial records, video evidence. My eyes widened. The video! Exactly, he said. Their entire case hinges on you being unstable. The video shows your sister physically assaulting you in a moment where you were calm and composed. It shows her making demands. It shows her attempting to coerce you. I exhaled shakily. You think that's enough? It's more than enough, he said firmly. If the judge sees this, Lily's case will collapse so fast it'll give her whiplash. I swallowed. But the statements... Richard lifted a hand dismissively. We will dismantle every statement one by one. They're weak, all hearsay. No actual medical evaluation. No evidence. He flipped through the pages again, scoffing. They even claimed you forgot your wedding toast. Ridiculous. You gave a coherent, moving speech. I almost laughed. Moving wasn't the word Lily used. He pointed his pen at me. That slap saved you. I blinked. What? He nodded. Her loss of control, on video with witnesses, destroyed her credibility. Guardianship is based on showing the petitioner is acting in the ward's best interest. Lily's behavior shows the opposite. A strange sensation spread through my chest. Relief, fear, gratitude, all tangled. What now? I asked. Now, he said, we prepare. And prepare we did. That week was a blur of appointments. A psychiatric evaluation, passed with flying colors, a medical exam, a notarized statement about my health, a meeting with my boss, letters from coworkers, statements from friends, documentation of every bill, every payment, every routine, a personal journal for the judge. My life became a file, organized, detailed, irrefutable. Jess helped me collect documents. Judge Hale provided guidance. The social worker sent her report. Even my neighbor across the hall wrote a glowing statement about my stability and awareness. Piece by piece, we built the truth. And Lily had no idea. But she sensed something. She showed up twice at my doorstep that week, banging on the door, shouting for me to stop making everything worse. She left voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to venomous threats. I saved everyone, because Richard told me to. One afternoon, my mother showed up instead, crying, dramatic, draped in guilt. Ava, please, she begged, withdraw your challenge. Lily is so stressed. You're both tearing this family apart. I stared at her through the chained door. She's trying to take my life away, I whispered. Why aren't you angry at her? She recoiled like I'd slapped her. Don't speak that way. You're not well. It took everything in me to stay calm. I'm very well, I said, and a court will prove it. She shook her head, whispered something about ungrateful children, and left with trembling shoulders. I closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a shuddering breath. They weren't scared for me. They were scared of losing control. 3 days before the hearing, Richard called. We're ready, he said. We have more than enough evidence. I closed my eyes. Do you really think I can win? Ava, he said quietly, I don't think you can win. My heart stopped. I know you will. I sank onto the couch, tears pricking my eyes. Thank you. You're not fighting alone, he said. Not anymore. When the call ended, I stood on my balcony, looking out over the shimmering harbor. Boats cut through the water, gulls circled. The wind brushed against my cheek, cool and familiar. For the first time since the nightmare began, I let myself breathe, deep, slow, steady, no panic, no fear, no dread. A new feeling stirred inside me, one I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The morning of the hearing arrived cold and gray, like the sky itself was bracing for impact. I barely slept, 2 hours, maybe 3. But when I looked in the mirror, my reflection didn't look fragile. My eyes were ringed with exhaustion, yes, but there was something steady behind them, a firmness I hadn't seen in years. I put on the navy suit Jess helped me pick out. Simple, respectful, strong. A suit worn by someone who was not a victim. When I arrived at Charleston County Courthouse, Richard was already waiting at the entrance, flipping through a folder thick with documents. Ready? He asked. No, I said honestly, but I'm here. That's all you need to be. We walked inside. The metal detectors beeped softly as we stepped through. The marble floors gleamed. My heels echoed in the hallway like a heartbeat. And then I saw them. Lily, Brett, my mother, Aunt Sharon, 2 of Lily's bridesmaids, even the neighbor who barely knew my last name. They huddled together like a defense team preparing their star witness. Lily wore a pale gray dress and a cardigan that made her look soft, delicate, fragile, the perfect innocent. Her hair was curled gently around her face. She held a tissue. She looked like a woman grieving, not a woman who orchestrated the destruction of her own sister. When her eyes met mine, she flinched. Just barely. But she flinched. Her attorney, a tall man with silver hair and a watch that probably cost more than my rent, stepped beside her and whispered something. She nodded, wiping an imaginary tear. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was theater. Richard placed a steady hand on my elbow. Don't look at them. Look at me. I tore my gaze away as he led me toward a small conference room where our witnesses waited. Jess was there, sitting with her hands clasped tightly. When she saw me, she stood immediately and hugged me hard. "You've got this," she whispered. My former supervisor, Catherine, nodded at me warmly. The president of my condo association, Helen, gave me a small thumbs up. A few co-workers I trusted sat quietly, ready to stand for me without hesitation. And in the corner, arms crossed, was Judge Hale. Her presence alone made my chest loosen. "Thank you for coming," I whispered to her. She nodded. "People like your sister don't expect consequences. Today, she gets consequences." Richard cleared his throat. "Everyone, the judge assigned to this case is known for being fair but sharp. He won't be swayed by theatrics. He will care about facts, evidence, and credibility. Ava's going to be fine." I tried to believe him. "Remember," he said softly, "Lily's case hinges on portraying you as unstable. Your job is simply to be yourself." Myself, someone who paid her bills on time, someone who worked hard, someone who built her life from the ground up, someone Lily underestimated. The bailiff knocked and called our case number. My pulse spiked. "It's time," Richard said. We entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Rows of wooden benches, a raised platform, the state flag in the corner. It smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old paper. The judge, a man in his 60s with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose, took his seat. "All rise," the bailiff said. We stood. "You may be seated," the judge said. He looked down at the file before him. "This is the petition for emergency guardianship over Ava Marie Greenwood. Petitioners, Lily Harper Bennett and Brett Cameron Bennett. Counsel, you may proceed." Lily's lawyer stood. He walked toward the bench with rehearsed gravitas. "Your Honor, we are here today out of love and concern. My clients believe that Miss Greenwood has exhibited behaviors indicating cognitive decline, emotional instability, and an inability to manage her own affairs. This is not an act of hostility. It is one of compassion." I almost choked. He continued, "We will present testimony from close family, neighbors, and medical professionals who have observed concerning patterns." He gestured toward Lily, who dabbed her eyes with the tissue again. My stomach turned. Richard leaned toward me. "Don't react." Then the lawyer added, "Our goal is simply to ensure Miss Greenwood receives the support and protection she desperately needs." Desperately. My jaw clenched. The judge nodded. "You may call your first witness." Lily's attorney turned. "The petitioners call Lily Bennett." My sister rose, smoothing her dress, and walked toward the witness stand. She raised her hand, swore to tell the truth, then sat neatly, folded hands, trembling lip, the perfect image of a concerned sibling. "Mrs. Bennett," her lawyer began, "can you tell the court why you filed this petition?" Lily sniffled. "I'm scared for my sister. She's not the person she used to be." My breath caught. "She forgets things, important things. She's withdrawn from family. She's paranoid." Her voice cracked. "She accused me of terrible things at my wedding. She had a public outburst and didn't even remember what she said." My chest tightened like someone was squeezing it. She went on, "Ava has always been the strong one, but lately she's been unraveling. I love her. I just want to protect her." Protect. She said it like a prayer, like a lie masked as devotion. When her lawyer finished, Richard stood. "Mrs. Bennett," he said calmly, "did your sister forget her speech at your wedding?" Lily blanched. She seemed confused. That's not what I asked. His voice was sharp, precise, surgical. Did she forget her speech? Well, no, but... And did you strike her across the face during the reception? Gasps rippled through the room. Lily froze. I didn't mean... Did you or did you not strike her? She shifted in the chair. She wasn't listening. She was embarrassing herself. Mrs. Bennet, Richard interrupted, answer the question. Lily's face flushed blotchy red. Yes, but she provoked me. Richard nodded. Thank you. No further questions. Lily stepped down, visibly rattled. She avoided looking at me as she sat beside Brett, who squeezed her knee like she was the victim. The attorney called my mother next. Her testimony was full of nostalgic rambling and barely veiled condemnation. Ava's always been too independent for her own good, she said. She refuses help. She isolates herself. She gets overwhelmed easily. Overwhelmed. My eyes burned. Then Aunt Sharon took the stand. Ava seems off, she said bluntly. She doesn't act like family matters anymore. That's worrying. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat still, calm, quiet, steady, the very things Lily hadn't accounted for. Then came the pharmacist. He seemed nervous. She repeated a question once, he said. I didn't think much of it, but her sister said she'd been forgetting things. Richard dismantled him easily. Did you personally observe confusion? No. Did you ever document concerns? No. Did you write the statement voluntarily? Lily asked me to. The judge's face tightened. Finally, the neighbor, Paul Henderson. Richard leaned over and whispered, Don't worry, he'll collapse under pressure. And he did. Paul stammered through claims that I installed cameras out of paranoia, but under questioning, he admitted Lily had mentioned concerns, and he hadn't actually spoken to me about any of it. Every one of their witnesses cracked. Everyone showed holes big enough to drive a truck through. Then the judge turned to Richard. Defense? Richard stood, buttoning his suit jacket. We call Judge Rebecca Hale. Lily's head snapped up so fast her earrings swung. When Hale took the stand, the courtroom changed. She carried authority like armor. She swore in, sat, and fixed her gaze firmly on the judge. Judge Hale, Richard began, please describe what you witnessed at the Bennet wedding. She did, in precise, unshakable detail. I witnessed the petitioner demand control over her sister's property. I witnessed the respondent refuse calmly and respectfully. I then witnessed Mrs. Bennet strike her sister across the face in a room full of witnesses. Lily's face drained of color. Then came the final blow. In my professional capacity, Judge Hale said clearly, I believe this petition is not an act of protection, but an act of retaliation and financial coercion. Gasps echoed. The judge scribbled furiously. Richard called my supervisor, then Helen, then the social worker, then Jess. Every one of them testified calmly, clearly, powerfully. Not one of them wavered. Not one of them painted me as anything less than competent, stable, and in full control of my life. Finally, it was my turn. I walked to the stand, raised my hand, swore to tell the truth. Then I sat and looked directly at the judge. I told him everything. The manipulation, the pressure, the threats, the slap, the lies, the petition, the fear, the strength I never knew I had. No theatrics, no outbursts, just truth. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. The judge lifted his glasses. I've heard enough. My stomach clenched. This petition is denied, with prejudice. Lily gasped. The judge continued, voice firm and cold. What I have witnessed here today is not a family trying to protect a vulnerable loved one. It is a calculated attempt to seize control of an adult woman's assets. Mrs. Bennet, you should be ashamed. Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks, not from grief, but fury. This court strongly recommends the respondent seek legal measures to protect herself from further harassment. Further harassment, The judge had seen everything clearly. "This hearing is adjourned," he said. He banged the gavel. It was over. Lily collapsed into Brett's shoulder, sobbing. My mother glared at me with betrayal. Aunt Sharon shook her head, but I didn't look at them. I looked at Richard, Jess, Judge Hale, my witnesses, the people who stood by me. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never felt in my family. Chosen. The judge's gavel echoed in my ears long after we left the room. It wasn't just a sound, it was freedom. When I woke up the morning after the hearing, Charleston felt different. The air was softer, quieter, as if the whole city had exhaled with me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't wake up with dread sitting on my chest. No buzzing anxiety, no what-if spirals, no fear of the next knock at the door. Just silence, peaceful silence. I made coffee and carried it to the balcony, watching the early light stretch across the harbor. The world didn't look new, but I did. Something inside me had rearranged itself during that hearing. Something that had been bent too long finally snapped back into place. My phone buzzed beside me. "Jess. Checking in, how are you feeling?" I typed back, "Lighter." She sent 3 heart emojis and a "call me later." I smiled, the first real smile in a long time. By noon, I found myself doing something unexpected. I opened my closet and pulled out the old banker's box with every important document I owned. Financial records, health directives, old photos, everything Lily tried to weaponize against me. I set the box on the dining table and took a deep breath. It was time to reclaim my story. Emails came in throughout the day. Catherine sent a long message full of praise and relief. Helen dropped by with a basket of muffins, because victory deserves carbs. Jess texted pictures of celebratory champagne. My circle, small but real, showed up for me. Not one message from my mother, none from Aunt Sharon, and Lily. Nothing but silence. As the sun dipped lower, orange light streamed through the windows, warming the penthouse floors, and I realized something important. I wasn't waiting for her anymore, not for an apology, not for closure, not for understanding. I didn't need anything from her. And that was the real freedom. Later that evening, I sat at my dining table again, but this time not with evidence spread out like battle plans. I had a blank notebook in front of me, a pen in my hand. I began writing a new will. Richard would handle the legal part, but I needed to write the personal one, the one that explained the why, the one that future me, future kids, nieces, nephews, or no one at all could understand. A document of truth, not silence. I wrote about the penthouse, how I bought it, loved it, protected it, how it had become more than a home, a symbol, a reminder that I built something of my own in a family that took and took without giving anything back. I wrote about the grant for elder advocacy, so no one would feel as alone as I had felt on those terrifying nights when my own sister tried to erase my autonomy. I wrote about potential grandchildren, Lily's or mine someday, and how they deserved support without strings attached. And I wrote about Lily, not cruelly, not bitterly, just honestly. I wrote, "I love the version of you that existed before entitlement and envy took root. I hope you find your way back to her someday, but I won't sacrifice myself waiting for it." I closed the notebook. For the first time, those words didn't hurt. 2 days later, Richard invited me to his office to finalize the new legal documents. When I arrived, he greeted me with a smile for the first time since we started this battle. "You look good," he said. "Rested." "I finally slept," I replied. "That's what happens when you're not carrying a whole courthouse on your back." We laughed, and he slid a stack of papers across the table. "These are the final versions: will, trust documents, power of attorney protections, directive safeguards, ironclad. Nobody can touch your property now, not without your consent." Nobody. The words settled like a balm over my skin. I signed everything. When we stepped out of the building, Judge Hale was standing on the sidewalk talking to a colleague. She spotted me, excused herself, and walked over. "Mrs. Greenwood," she said warmly. "Please," I said. Call me Ava." She nodded. "Ava, then. You held yourself with more composure than many people twice your age. What your sister attempted wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." I swallowed hard. "Thank you for everything." "You did the hard part," she said. "You told the truth." Truth, a simple word that became my lifeline. As I drove home, I passed the quiet Charleston streets lined with oaks and Spanish moss. The city looked peaceful, but I knew peace wasn't a place. It was a choice, a boundary, a line drawn with conviction. My phone buzzed with another message, a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then opened it. "Ava, it's Lily. I know you hate me, but please can we talk?" For several minutes, I stared at the screen. I didn't hate her. Hate required more energy than I was willing to give. But talk? What would talking change? She had stood in a courtroom and tried to erase me. She had lied under oath. She had almost succeeded. And even if she apologized now, it would be out of fear, not love. I wrote back, "I'm not ready." Then I blocked the number, not out of spite, out of self-preservation. That night, the sky turned violet over the harbor. I lit a candle, made tea, and curled up on the couch, letting the soft glow fill the room. For the first time, the penthouse didn't feel like a shield or a burden. It felt like home. My home. Not because it was luxurious, not because it was expensive, but because I chose it, I kept it, I fought for it, and I won. The next morning, I joined my condo neighbors for brunch downstairs. They hugged me, toasted to the verdict, passed around plates of warm biscuits. A woman from the building, a retired professor, squeezed my hand. "You taught all of us something," she said. "Family doesn't give someone the right to your life." I nodded, feeling that truth settle deep. As I walked back to the elevator afterward, a strange sense of certainty washed over me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding, reclaiming, becoming. When I reached my floor, I paused at the elevator doors, letting that thought sink in. The worst was over, and the best was still ahead. I stepped inside my penthouse, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors, the harbor glittering beyond the windows, and for the first time in a very long while, I felt whole. Before I closed my laptop for the night, I opened the document where I had been recording my journey. Not the legal version, the personal version. I added one final paragraph. Sometimes the person who tries to break you is the one who was supposed to love you. But sometimes the people who help you stand back up are the ones you chose yourself. So choose well. Choose boldly. Choose peace. I saved the file. And with that, my story found its ending. Or maybe its beginning. Before you go, if any part of my story resonated with you, if you've ever set a boundary, fought for yourself, or refused to surrender what you earned, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment, tell me where you're listening from, and share your thoughts. If you enjoy stories like this, true, raw, and empowering, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and I'd love for you to stay for the next chapter of this journey. Thank you for listening. Sometimes the best revenge is healing.